Hey guys! Tonight we spiral deep into olive-scented chaos and clink amphorae with a god who probably invented acting because nobody could tell when he was serious. You're on a rocky hillside in ancient Thrace, brushing honey off your tunic and blinking at the daylight rave unfolding around you. Drums throb, figs fly. A goat stands atop a wine barrel shouting ambiguous poetry. Welcome to the first chapter of How Dionysus Accidentally Invented Theater While Day Drinking. Beneath a garlanded canopy of ivy and poor decisions, Dionysus glides like a fever dream. His robe slips dramatically off one shoulder. His sandals are missing. His entourage includes nymphs, satyrs, and one mortal poet chewing pomegranate seeds with world-changing intensity. You follow him. You don't have much choice. Dionysus moves like celebration incarnate, equal parts nightclub DJ and mythic migraine. Let's pause for a reality check. You probably won't survive this with your dignity intact. The god of wine doesn't gently guide mortals into transcendence. He spins them, he soaks them, he sings into their ears until they forget how calendars work. And somewhere, in the middle of a midsummer hangover, art begins to crawl out of the ruins. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know your current location and local time down below. Always love seeing where our little bedtime history cult has spread. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You follow Dionysus down a winding path. Vines curl around your ankles. Music spills from the woods, flutes, stomping, animal noises, and one chorus of philosophical yodeling. Dionysus laughs. He's making something tonight. A ritual, a story, a play. Hard to say. But if you're lucky, you'll remember it in the morning. You wake up tangled in ivy, your hair smelling like fermented grapes and regret. Dionysus is lounging on a rock shaped like a fainting couch, sipping wine from a horn that may or may not belong to a still angry goat. His eyes gleam with a liquid kind of wisdom, the kind that stumbles into truth while chasing butterflies and ranting about moonlight. You've entered a realm where divinity wears mascara and decisions are just scenic detours. You ask where he came from. He grins and tells you three versions. 1. He's the son of Zeus and the mortal Semele, born prematurely and stitched into Zeus's thigh like a mythological afterthought. 2. He sprang from Persephone, the goddess of the underworld, which explains his occasional interest in shadows and dramatic exits. 3. He's eternal, older than figs, and slightly allergic to moderation. Historians still argue whether Dionysus is the most complex figure in the Greek pantheon or just the one who remembered to bring snacks. His myths contradict themselves. He dies. He returns. He wears leopard skins and invents the wine hangover before anyone asked for it. Fringe fact. One myth claims Dionysus once turned a group of pirates into dolphins just for interrupting his nap. You squint and wonder if dolphins still hold grudges. His cult spreads wildly. You follow him into a cave glowing with torchlight and vague promises. Women dance with hair undone. Men chant in rhythmic moans. One guy is crying over a perfectly average pear. Dionysus floats through them all, draped in vines and charisma, his presence both invitation and experiment.
He doesn't command, he compels. You notice something. People start narrating. A woman reenacts her heartbreak through pantomimed tree-hugging. A man tells a story with dramatic pauses and surprise tambourine hits. Dionysus watches like he's seeing art begin. You sit beside him. He hands you wine. It tastes like thunder and forgotten birthdays. Don't think. Just pretend with conviction. You sip again. Theater is fermenting in the wine. You taste beginnings.
You weave through olive trees strung with ribbons and half-chewed grapes. The festival has begun. Dionysus is already tipsy and gloriously unbothered. You catch him mid-spin beside a tambourine-wielding satyr who is trying to impersonate a thunderstorm. A crowd gathers. Not solemn, not scripted, just wildly emotional and deeply committed to something. Welcome to the Dionysian feast, where ritual and chaos blend like figs and poor impulse control. The celebrants chant. They shout praises to the god of wine, madness, fertility, and maybe interpretive dance. You pick up a bowl of honeyed barley and try not to slip on someone's discarded laurel wreath. Someone hands you a lyre. You strum once, a goat cheers. You feel seen. This is no ordinary party. It's an ecstatic rite meant to dissolve boundaries. Worshippers lose themselves, become characters, channel emotions too raw for daylight. It's all spontaneous performance, sung devotions, and elaborate fig distribution. Dionysus dances through it like a conductor of slightly drunk truth. Fringe fact, some rites included wearing ivy crowns and smearing participants with wine-soaked mud to remind them of nature's embrace and questionable hygiene. You nod. It tracks. Historians still argue whether these rites were structured worship or full theatrical improvisation. Some call them proto-theater. Others see raw spiritual release. But the storytelling is undeniable. A woman reenacts her journey through heartbreak as a silent tableau. A man describes his taxes using interpretive pig grunts. You find this oddly moving. Dionysus watches all. He doesn't direct. He nudges. Somewhere deep in this festival, mortals shift from ritual to narrative. The god doesn't need scripts. He thrives on transformation. Someone yells a myth. Others join. Chorus forms. Costumes happen. Roles blur. You watch in real time as religious intensity morphs into storytelling. Not about gods, but through them. A fig hits your shoulder. You've been cast. You scramble onto a mossy boulder, overlooking the next phase of Dionysian drama, the dithyramb. Below, a circular clearing pulses with voices and sandals. No scripts, no soloists, just chorus. Wild, layered, exuberant noise. This is poetic yelling with mythical intent. Dionysus lounges nearby, chewing grapes and humming along. You lean in. The shouting almost rhymes. Dithyrambs are ecstatic hymns to the god, a kind of group karaoke where mortals declare their devotion through layered vocal drama.
The chorus sings of Dionysus's birth, journeys, wild antics, and one particularly odd tale involving pickled olives and emotional satyrs. The rhythm fluctuates, stomping, syncopation, and chants that sound like someone screaming joy through a megaphone carved from stone. Historians still argue whether dithyrambs count as proto-tragedy or just passionate team building with decorative headwear. The line is blurry, but what's clear? Storytelling thrives here. Refrains emerge, characters form. Someone reenacts Dionysus's escape from pirates using interpretive dance and goat impressions. It brings the crowd to tears, or hiccups. Fringe fact: early dithyramb choruses performed in circular spaces called orchestras, not for instruments, but for optimal echo. One poet swore the echo enhanced divine mood. Another used it to rehearse breakups. You sip wine from a clay cup handed to you mid-stomp. It's spicy, possibly symbolic. The chorus changes tone. Now it's lamentation. Dionysus watches, face solemn. The singing mourns his death, references his underworld sojourn, then erupts again in celebration of his return. Drama isn't added, it's baked into the rhythm. The performance escalates. Masks appear. Crudely crafted, exaggerated features, fixed expressions that let singers embody roles. You see pride, shame, desire, all played in chorus, not solo. Theater is hiding inside this ritual, waiting for one brave voice to step forward and declare, "Let me speak as myself." That voice is coming, and it wears eyeliner.
You crouch beside a rickety cart piled with masks that smell like wine sweat and ambition. A man named Thespis adjusts one over his face, a crude creation of painted linen, big eyes, dramatic brow, and just enough mystery to worry his neighbors. The dithyramb chorus is warming up behind him, but Thespis? He's about to do something unthinkable. Step forward and speak as a character. Alone. Welcome to acting's awkward birth. He climbs onto the cart, arms wide, voice trembling with passion and possibly fermentation. You squint. He's playing a hero, or a god, or a merchant who forgot his goat. Whatever it is, it's singular, separated from the chorus, a solo persona embodied for performance. The crowd gasps. Someone mutters, "Is that legal?" Dionysus, reclining nearby, shrugs and drinks deeply. Thespis improvises dialogue. He talks, replies to imagined voices, reacts. The chorus supports, but he's the axis. Theater has fractured from group into individual. And all because one guy decided masks weren't just for anonymity, they were for transformation. Fringe fact: some sources claim Thespis used wagon performances to reach multiple villages, creating mobile mini-theaters. Historians still argue whether this traveling actor existed as a single person or as a stylized placeholder for early solo performers. Either way, the legend stuck. You help pass out more masks, some tragic, some comic, some resembling tired cabbage merchants. The festival mood shifts. Drama now includes dialogue, role switching, narrative tension,
Dionysus watches with delight and a touch of mischief. His rites have birthed roles. The god of revelry is now stage manager by accident. Another performer steps up. This one mimics a grieving widow in the underworld. The chorus hums like spectral backup dancers. The mask she wears exaggerates sorrow, a face meant for visibility, not subtlety. You realize something wild. With a mask, even shyness gets permission. You put one on. It smells like fig juice and nervous ambition. You take a breath.
You march toward Athens, sandals dusty, amphora sloshing, and whispers trailing like gossip in a toga. The city Dionysia festival is about to begin, and theater, accidental and buzzed, is stepping on to center stage. Dionysus isn't just invited. He's the guest of honor, the muse, the mascot, and, depending on the script, the lead actor with questionable punctuality. You squeeze past vendors selling feta-laced pastries and masks that smell like ambition. Athens transforms for this annual spring fling. Crowds swell, statues gleam. A wooden statue of Dionysus is paraded through the city, only to stop to receive toasts or mildly terrified poems. You follow the procession, dodging flying petals and a donkey wearing eyeliner. At the heart of it all lies the Theater of Dionysus, a semicircle of stone sloped to cradle thousands, built with the kind of acoustics that let emotions echo like philosophical thunder. You take your seat. It's less throne, more gravel with confidence. Around you, merchants, scholars, dignitaries, fig smugglers. Everyone's here to be transformed, or at least impressed. Fringe fact: playwrights competed for glory with new works judged by citizen panels. Winners received ivy wreaths and eternal bragging rights. Losers got gently booed and a complimentary fig basket. Historians still argue whether this festival was more sacred rite or civic entertainment. Most agree it was deeply both. The drama begins. Each day brings new plays, 3 tragedies, and 1 sadder comedy. You watch the actors, masked and majestic, navigate betrayal, fate, hubris, and at least one questionable haircut. The chorus chants, dances, and sometimes stares intently at audience members holding loud snacks. Dionysus watches from his honorary seat, sipping from a goblet carved with drama masks. He nods approvingly when the hero dies. He laughs when the satyr trips. The festival pulses with emotion, grief, joy, confusion. Plays become communal catharsis. Dionysus doesn't lead the action anymore. He inspires it. A patron god, theatrical midwife, wine-soaked symbol. By nightfall, you've cried twice, danced once, and written half a play about olives and heartbreak. You hear someone mumble, "Theater changes everything." And it all began with one god who liked his stories loud, his wine strong, and his rituals weird.
You curl up beneath a fig tree that smells faintly of regret and powdered tragedy. Today's performance is different, heavier. On stage, an actor in a towering mask cries out to the gods while slowly unsheathing a wooden sword carved from someone's ex-boyfriend's furniture. The chorus hums behind him, low and mournful. Welcome to tragedy's grand debut. You're watching mortals turn myth into meaning. Dionysus sits nearby, unusually quiet. He sips from a ceremonial cup and nods each time the hero suffers. The play is harsh: betrayal, prophecy, hubris, exile. You lean forward, sensing not just pain, but structure. This isn't ritual anymore. It's storytelling, crafted to slice emotional layers with precision. Historians still argue whether tragedy emerged purely from religious roots or sprang from evolving civic consciousness. Either way, you feel the shift: sacred sorrow becoming staged empathy. The audience doesn't just watch, they participate emotionally, flinching at injustice, gasping at fate. Fringe fact: actors wore platform shoes called kathornoi to appear taller and more divine. One slipped mid-monologue, causing philosophical debate about dramatic irony and ankle support. You glance at the playwright's name etched on a slab: Aeschylus. He's crafting emotional architecture, layering character flaw over cosmic twist. His hero defies a prophecy. The prophecy gets petty. The ending isn't happy, it's inevitable. Dionysus murmurs, "Pain makes better art." You nod, but also wonder if he's just trying to justify last night's grape juice decisions. The chorus rises again, somber, synchronized, slightly melodic. Their unity contrasts the solo actor's unraveling. You're witnessing catharsis, the purging of emotion through theatrical precision. The audience exhales. Someone quietly blows their nose into a toga. Masks reflect sorrow. Costume weights exaggerate tragedy. Stage mechanics creak with destiny. You leave the theater shaken but full. Not of food, of feeling. You step outside and hear someone say, "Tomorrow's show has goat pants." You blink. Comedy can wait. First, there's tragedy's echo.
You duck beneath a garland of fig leaves and land in a clearing teeming with flutes, laughter, and a suspicious number of men in goat pants. The satyr play has begun, and Dionysus is practically vibrating with glee. Gone are the solemn tragedies. Today's menu features mischief, mythology, and flute solos that sound like someone trying to seduce a tree. You ease onto a stone bench that smells faintly of misbehavior. A satyr stumbles onto the stage, furry legs kicking, tail flicking. He's half man, half beast, and all attitude. You recognize the setting, a heroic myth. But everything is skewed. The hero misplaces his sword. The goddess won't stop checking her nails. A chorus of satyrs tries to explain metaphysics using suggestive dance. You clutch your wine and prepare for narrative whiplash. Fringe fact: satyr plays were traditionally performed at the end of tragedy trilogies, a palate cleanser for the emotionally overwhelmed. Think myth meets parody meets party. Historians still argue whether these plays were deeply philosophical subversions or just ancient fart jokes with symbolic flair. The costumes are ridiculous. One satyr's tail detaches mid-leap and lands in a noblewoman's lap. She's unfazed. The masks exaggerate features, bulging eyes, exaggerated smiles, expressive eyebrows that seem to have their own side quests. You giggle involuntarily when one actor delivers a dramatic monologue while chasing a runaway wine jug. Dionysus sits front row, tossing grapes at the chorus and cackling. He loves this, the irreverence, the chaos, the reminder that gods and mortals both deserve mockery. You lean forward as a satyr delivers a parody of a famous tragic speech. He turns Hamlet into a wine critic. You nod appreciatively. Suddenly, a goat statue explodes in confetti. You have no idea what it means, but the audience cheers. Theater here is release, comedy after sorrow, silliness with sacred undertones. You watch as the satyrs bow, tails wiggling, and the crowd roars. Dionysus stands, sways slightly, and claps with divine gusto. A frog croaks in rhythm nearby. You hear someone whisper, "Tomorrow's show has talking animals." You blink. It's Aristophanes' time.
You shuffle into a crumbling amphitheater with seats carved from ambition and bird droppings. Today, laughter echoes. Aristophanes takes the stage, armed with satire, sass, and a frog chorus that ribbits like philosophers arguing about lunch. This isn't tragedy, and it's certainly not subtle. Welcome to the rowdy world of ancient Greek comedy, where Dionysus himself often stars as a confused, fabulous mess. The play opens with Dionysus trying to solve a cultural crisis while wearing a ridiculous costume that might be a lion or a tax form. He debates poets, complains about travel, and eventually descends into the underworld to pick up better writers. It's called The Frogs, and yes, there are frogs. They sing. You hum along. This play slaps. Historians still argue whether Aristophanes was the voice of democracy or just the guy who told fart jokes with mythological flair. You sip wine and lean in, as Dionysus, portrayed by an actor who clearly skipped rehearsal, misquotes Homer and argues with dead poets. It's ridiculous and brilliant. Fringe fact: ancient Greek comedy often lampooned real politicians by name. One joke targeted Cleon so aggressively that historians debate whether he sued the theater or just cried into his helmet. The audience laughs loudly. Women cover their faces, men slap thighs. A donkey in the front row nods in approval. The chorus breaks into song, half mocking, half prophetic. You wonder if comedy is secretly divine wisdom wearing silly pants. Dionysus loves it. He's both mocked and worshipped. Theatrical versions of him range from party god to nervous bureaucrat. The crowd roars when he trips over a philosophical metaphor. You feel it. Comedy unites mortals not with reverence, but with shared absurdity. Another play begins. This time, a talking cloud teaches ethics. You blink. Theater's elasticity stretches wide. In the corner, Dionysus whispers, "Laughter is divine, especially when it's weird."
You wander up the stone path to a half-moon amphitheater, nestled into a hillside like a folded fig leaf.
The seats shimmer under sunlight filtered through olive branches, and a cicada recites its one-note poem with maddening persistence. Today's spectacle isn't a play, it's the architecture itself. Theater has settled into stone, and Dionysus, its wine-soaked muse, lounges beside a column, critiquing the view. The first thing you notice, geometry. The Greeks didn't just build places to sit, they sculpted acoustics, plotted sightlines, and framed the stage like a philosophical thesis. You clap softly. The echo travels like scandal. The design allows thousands to hear a whisper or a sneeze with equal clarity. You wonder aloud, did anyone test this with goats? A nearby scholar says, yes, absolutely. Fringe fact: ancient theaters often relied on hollow, amphora-shaped jars buried beneath seats to enhance sound. Historians still argue whether this counts as early sound engineering or just overly enthusiastic recycling. The theater of Dionysus in Athens sets the standard. Its orchestra circle hosts chorus and chaos. Behind it rises the skene, a backstage structure that eventually evolves into elaborate stage buildings. You peek inside. Props, costumes, one actor arguing with a mask about creative direction. Dionysus approves of the layout. He gestures to the stage and mutters, "Needs more ivy." You nod. Everything needs more ivy. Seats slope upward for optimal audience view. Rich citizens sit closest. Poor citizens get philosophical vertigo from the top row. The whole theater feels like a society diagram carved into limestone. Status reflected in seating. Emotion reflected in performance. You balance on a third-tier ledge and feel thoughtful. Historians debate how democratic these theaters were. Everyone attended, but not everyone experienced equally. Still, theater became a communal anchor. Theaters weren't just entertainment. They were civic discourse disguised as dramatic suffering. Another structure, the family, an altar often placed at the center of the orchestra circle, a reminder that these performances began as sacred offerings. You watch a child toss a grape on it and declare a poem. Dionysus claps. You blink. The space bends, sacred and profane, like an expertly aged wine. Architecture shapes experience. Theaters become temples of emotion. You glance up at the sun, tracing shadows across stone benches, and wonder if the gods engineered drama just for acoustics. A poet nearby mumbles, "The geometry of grief is circular." You nod slowly. That's either profound or heavily caffeinated. Next up, philosophers who ruin everything by asking uncomfortable questions about pretending to be someone else in public.
You slink into a courtyard where marble philosophers pretend not to judge your sandals. Today's show stars skeptics, scribes, and one particularly grumpy idealist named Plato. The amphitheaters still echo with drama, but a new conversation emerges. Is theater a liar? Is Dionysus just encouraging emotional fraud? You sit cross-legged beneath an olive tree, eavesdropping as Plato tries to cancel acting. His complaint is simple-ish. Theater imitates life, but badly. It's a copy of a copy, twice removed from truth. He argues actors mislead people, stir emotions irrationally, and distract from philosophy's noble task of squinting at abstract ideals. You sip wine and whisper, "He seems fun at parties." A fig bounces off your shoulder, possibly Plato-approved critique. Fringe fact: Plato proposed banning poets and playwrights from his ideal republic. One poet responded by writing a satire where Plato is bested in a rhetorical duel by a talking goat. Historians still argue whether Plato's dislike of theater stemmed from genuine concern or general disdain for spotlight hogs. Either way, his pupil, Aristotle, wasn't buying it. You cross the courtyard to Aristotle, seated among scrolls and confident chin angles. He's drafting Poetics, a guide to drama's structure, purpose, and soul. He defines tragedy, explains catharsis, praises plot twists. You peek at his outline. Hero must suffer. You nod. Sounds familiar. Aristotle believes theater teaches through emotional clarity. It's art with psychic plumbing. You follow his logic and trip over a scroll titled "Comedy Still Confusing." He hasn't quite sorted that one yet. Dionysus strolls in, grape cluster in hand, halfway between smug and sleepy. He listens to both sides, then grabs a mask and performs an impromptu scene about philosophers trying to define joy while wearing itchy robes. The crowd chuckles. Even Plato smirks. Briefly. You realize something beautiful. Theater isn't truth, but it mirrors truth emotionally. Dionysus doesn't promise facts, he offers resonance. In the fading light, you overhear someone say, "Let's build a statue to the god of drama." Dionysus winks. Tomorrow, his legend gets carved into stone and velvet.
You step into a velvet-draped chamber that smells faintly of incense, old scrolls, and decisions made under the influence of fig wine. Dionysus stands beneath a marble arch, arms outstretched, as playwrights and priests argue gently beside a golden mask. It's happening. He's being crowned, canonized, woven into the mythology of theater, not just as inspiration, but as full-blown patron deity. You sip wine thoughtfully. This feels like divine PR, with excellent lighting. The decision isn't arbitrary. Dionysus isn't just adjacent to performance, he's saturated in it. His rites sparked drama, his festivals birthed scripts, his moods influenced genres. Now artists raise statues, write poems, and dedicate masks in his name. You nod respectfully when someone unveils a velvet banner reading "The God of Performance" and reasonably timed stage entrances. Fringe fact: Ancient actors often invoked Dionysus before performances, asking for clarity, boldness, and not forgetting lines mid-monologue. One amphora painting shows Dionysus handing a mask to a nervous poet beside a donkey eating grapes. Historians still argue whether this divine attribution elevated theater's cultural status or simply kept it safely under religious approval. Either way, Dionysus becomes the mascot of transformation, emotional, personal, performative. You wander through a temple newly built in his honor. Pillars are carved like vines, wall reliefs show satyrs rehearsing choreographed mischief. A priest leads a procession where playwrights carry scrolls like sacred artifacts. You join, holding a mask that smells faintly of fresh tragedy. Inside the sanctum, an actor kneels beside a statue, muttering a line from Euripides. Divine madness, guide me through mortal truth. Dionysus winks. You don't question it. Soon plays credit the god directly with inspiration from Dionysus etched beside author names. Choruses sing his titles mid-performance. Wine flows before curtain lifts. Theater wasn't just born in his shadow. It now prays at his altar. And tomorrow the Romans borrow the whole idea and add sequins.
You lounge against a crumbling column in Rome, fiddling with the mosaic tile shaped like a tiny pharaoh. The scent of roasted olives floats over marble plazas, while Dionysus, in Roman disguise as Bacchus, twirls his grapevine crown and surveys a theater that doesn't just imitate the Greeks, it bedazzles them. Welcome to the Imperial Remix. Velvet capes, lion cameos, and amphitheaters where drama shouts from gilded balconies. Rome borrows, boldly. Greek tragedies, comedies, dithyrambs, all imported, upgraded, sometimes dunked in glitter. Theaters grow massive, built with stone, bronze, and ego. You squint up at the Colosseum and wonder if it could host Oedipus the Remix. Probably, with lions. Lots of lions. Fringe fact: the Roman playwright Seneca loved tragedy, but added more monologues, blood, and existential sighing. His work influenced Shakespeare centuries later. Historians still argue whether Roman tragedy was art or loud therapy for very dramatic senators. You step into a Roman theater where the masks are more detailed, the stage machinery includes trapdoors, and the crowd smells like politics. Actors recite lines while gladiators prepare for afternoon shows. Theater and spectacle blur here. You watch a play featuring Dionysus as Bacchus, complaining about toga stains while inventing wine policies. The audience laughs politely. Then a tiger roars. You sip nervously. Costumes glow. Scripts dramatize myths with extra flair. A satyr enters riding a fake chariot made of golden pretension. You clap cautiously. Romans elevate acting to profession, status, salary, celebrity gossip. You flip through a wax tablet gossip rag, reporting that Thespina wore 2 masks at once, shocking audiences and charming local merchants. You snort.
theaters become lifestyle. Dionysus watches all, content with adaptation. His essence remains: transformation, emotion, ritual dressed in silk. You see him carved into villa frescoes, lounging beside theatrical muses, holding a scroll that reads, "Applause is a kind of worship." You whisper, "That's dramatic." He winks. And next, you plunge into medieval shadows, where drama flickers through candlelight, puppets, and church-approved loopholes.
You tiptoe across a fog-draped chapel floor somewhere in medieval France, the air thick with candle smoke and suspicious quiet. Theater hasn't disappeared, but it's definitely wearing a different costume. Dionysus, he's retreated to the shadows, traded his grapevine crown for whispers and puppets behind church altars. You duck beneath a curtain embroidered with psalm verses and enter a space where drama survives through sacred loopholes and monks with surprising flair for theatrics. Church officials frown on pagan revelry. Dionysus isn't invited to Mass, but lingering, storytelling. Biblical tales become dramatized sermons. Adam and Eve get stage cues. Judas sneaks on with sinister lighting. Choir boys practice dying convincingly during passion plays. You raise an eyebrow and whisper, "This is oddly intense for Sunday morning." A monk hands you a fig tart. You accept. Fringe fact: medieval mystery plays often involved entire towns performing elaborate biblical episodes. One carpenter played God so convincingly he received confession mid-rehearsal. Historians still argue whether these plays reflect genuine devotion or community theater with theological frosting. Outside the cathedral, drama blossoms more freely. Traveling performers set up crude stages on wagons, portable theaters featuring morality tales, juggling monks, and the occasional donkey sidekick. You watch one actor impersonate death using a wooden spoon and eerie whispering. It works. A child cries. You nod. Theater exists now between reverence and rebellion. It's church-sponsored, but earthly. A nun backstage corrects a line from The Fall of Man with alarming, dramatic insight. You hear someone mutter, "She studied under Dionysus." You grin. The god isn't gone. He's hiding beneath robes and rhymes. Masks return, carved simply, often symbolic. One actor dons a skull-shaped hood to play temptation. The audience gasps, then applauds, then donates bread. Inside cloisters, monks pen scripts rich with allegory. Pride walks with a limp. Hope shines like oil lamp light. You read one parchment titled "The Vine That Redeems," featuring a suspiciously Dionysian character named Brother Grape. You squint. Subtle. Dionysus watches from the wings, amused. Theater has adapted, survived, whispered, improvised its way through piety. No wine allowed, but emotional intoxication still deeply encouraged. You leave with fig crumbs in your cloak, and the sense that even shadows crave spotlights. Tomorrow, the Renaissance reawakens everything with velvet capes and philosophical swagger.
You drift into a candlelit tavern somewhere on the Aegean coast, where the air hums with spilled wine and philosophical karaoke. Dionysus lounges near the hearth, flipping a scroll labeled Theater's Weird Journey, a Memoir. Tonight, the past meets present, and a drunken idea echoes through centuries of spotlight, velvet, and occasional jazz hands. You sip something ambiguously herbal and settle in to trace one god's theatrical fingerprints across human history. The Renaissance roars in. Theater rebounds from ecclesiastical shadows and bursts onto polished stages. Shakespeare scribbles verse while actors in pumpkin breeches monologue to candle smoke. Dionysus watches from behind curtains, eyebrows raised approvingly. His influence leaks through metaphor, mood, and wine-soaked wisdom. You join a rehearsal where someone argues that Macbeth's witches are basically satyrs with better fashion sense. You nod. Valid. Fringe fact, Renaissance playhouses often doubled as bear-baiting arenas. One performance of Hamlet was reportedly interrupted by a bear fight next door. Historians still argue whether that improved the soliloquy or scarred it forever. The modern age arrives. Gas lamps fade, curtains grow thicker, theaters become cathedrals of spectacle. Dionysus tiptoes through opera houses wearing sunglasses and critiques lighting. Playwrights experiment, absurdism, realism, tragedy wrapped in comedy like philosophical candy. You attend a 20th century production of the Bacchae, now staged with neon, synth music, and one actor portraying Dionysus as a nightclub bouncer. He kicks a philosopher mid-monologue. You clap respectfully. Broadway blossoms. Dionysus lounges mid-orchestra section, wearing sequined robes. Drama thrives, classic, experimental, musical. Wine is now intermission beverage. Masks become headshots. Then, Netflix. Streaming gods offer endless performance. Dionysus adjusts his earbuds, watches 6 adaptations of Oedipus in one night, and tweets, "Then still don't understand my ending." Today, improv groups, indie plays, and meme-driven scripts echo his themes. Transformation, ecstasy, emotional chaos. You join a troupe. Your character is confused philosopher at brunch. The audience relates deeply. Theater survives not because it's tidy, but because it's messy like life, sacred like emotion, and timeless like a good punchline. You ask Dionysus, "Did you mean to invent this?" He grins. "I meant to drink. The rest just happened." You watch the hearth crackle and feel the script ending beneath your feet. So now the wine cools. The curtain drifts. The masks rest in velvet drawers. Dionysus leans back, a satisfied glimmer in his smile, and the amphitheater hums with sleepy applause from centuries past. You've journeyed from fig-drenched festivals to Broadway crescendos, from cave rituals to neon improv nights. And along the way, the story danced, stumbled, and whispered truth through the tender art of pretending. Let yourself soften. No need to untangle myth from memory tonight. Let it all shimmer together. Stories sung under ivy, emotions etched into stone, characters breathed into life because someone dared to feel louder than logic. You wandered beside a god who didn't demand reverence, just participation. One who turned celebration into narrative and chaos
into catharsis. The air cools around you. The lights dim gently. The final chorus fades behind soft dreams. You're safe now, in the hush, after stories end. No applause needed. You were here. And tomorrow? Maybe you'll wear a mask. Maybe you'll improvise joy. But tonight, just sleep. The fig trees are quiet. The stage is yours.